So it'll be good to just get him some practice under his belt where he's fully healthy, confident that a full week's worth of practice and stacking those days definitely be beneficial for him.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
That's from Matt LaFleur earlier this afternoon, specifically talking about Jordan Love's health. This is the first time that he's practicing full bore, not limited, and practicing the full week for the first time in a while, because coming into the Detroit game, he didn't practice every day. And there were weeks when he was recovering from his first injury that he didn't practice every day. And even when he was practicing every day, as you'll remember, Matt LaFleur talked about again and again, there were a lot of days where he was limited. So Jordan Love, a full participant at practice today. Really the whole team out there and going full bore. Tucker Kraft, no non-contact jersey. Jair, Evan Williams, Josh Myers, all back out there, which I know most Packers fans are already feeling really confident about the Bears game. That's actually why I'm scared of this Bears game, but that's just a sports luck thing. That's not anything related to X's and O's. I just feel like when everyone's so confident that a game's going to go one way, I actually start to get nervous that it might go the other. That's a me problem. Just another reason, the Packers' health, why you can feel even more confident about the Packers' chances against the Bears this upcoming weekend. And we might hear a little bit more from Matt LaFleur, Christian Watson speaking with the media as well. I have a lot of NFL audio from different coaches and commentators. What's going on with the Bears, most specifically this week, is today was the first day where players were asked about Shane Waldron, and some of them were actually quite honest. So maybe we'll get a little taste of that audio before the show is done, and we turn things over to Bill and Mike Clements and his host of guests for the Bill Michaels Huddle coming up at 6 o'clock. This is the Wisco Sports Show. My name is Grant Bills. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. If you're listening on the radio, always appreciate you listening. I just want to let you know that you have the option, if you would like to, at any point, to watch the show too. If you're not anywhere where you can listen, if you're not in the car, maybe you're at home. We know Eric on I-90 sometimes, for example, works from home. And it's nice to know that Eric has an option if he wants to stream on YouTube or Facebook, the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills. And if you follow me on Twitter at Wisco Grant, the show streams there as well. And you can tweet me. That same handle at Wisco Grant during the show as well if you want to interact. 608-321-1670, the number to text and call. I want to get into football here in about 15 minutes. I actually want to start with basketball. I want to start with the Bucks. And I know we've poked a lot of fun at the in-season tournament, and we've certainly been critical of the NBA the last couple of weeks, especially now as the in-season tournament gets started. The courts, they look so ugly, and I've been very critical of the timing of the in-season tournament. It's like, why does it have to be in November? I barely have wrapped my arms around the NBA being back yet, and we're already doing a thing that matters. Do it in January, right? That's what I keep saying. We're going to keep poking fun at the in-season tournament, and we're going to keep poking fun at the NBA because, if we're all being honest, the NBA is very easy to poke fun at. It's very easy to make fun of, whatever the expression would be, grammatic or non-grammatically correct. But I got to give credit where credit is due. I had a fun night watching the NBA last night. And if not for the in-season tournament, I probably would have watched college basketball because there were some really good college basketball games on last night. ESPN, right, nationally televised games. Is it the Champions Classic or whatever event it was? I don't know. I get them all confused. But Cooper Flagg was playing for Duke and Michigan State, Hunter Dickinson. That was a game that was going on. So that was something that was interesting too. There were good college games on. And yet I watched the Bucks somewhat enthusiastically. And I flipped around and watched some other NBA games as well. Klay Thompson was back in Golden State last night, and he got to be on the opposing side of one of those Steph Curry runs that's just a backbreaker for the opponent. Yep, Klay Thompson got to experience that firsthand in his return and talked about it. I actually thought it was a nice moment for both sides, for Klay Thompson, who's now with the Mavericks, and for the Warriors. The Heat melted down at the end against the Pistons. Like, they got beat on an out-of-timeout play, and then Eric Spoelstra thought he had a timeout. He didn't. Then he tried to make a substitution when his team didn't even have the ball, and it just melted down and lost the game at the end, which is very funny. Embiid is back, and he stunk it up, and all of NBA Twitter was mocking him relentlessly, which I'm no Embiid fan, but seemed to be a little bit much personally, but to each their own. And the Celtics lost to the Hawks, which is very funny. And one of my favorite players in Yeka Okongwu had a career high. That was fun to watch. I like pulling against the Celtics. A lot of fun in-season tournament games last night. And the Bucks, of course, our team that we focus on. They got a really nice win. Yeah, it's Toronto, but who are we to look a gift horse in the mouth at this point in this season where they started, 1-6, and we're at the bottom of the Eastern Conference? Like, it's just the Raptors. Oh, we're going to turn our nose up at a win over anybody? I I don't care if they beat Duke and Cooper Flag. That's a good place to start. You got to start stacking some wins somewhere. And if it can't come against the Celtics, and they were close twice to their credit, I don't know that they were close against the Knicks, but they were close against the Celtics. If it's not going to come against the other Eastern Conference heavyweights, it's got to come against somebody. Might as well be Toronto, and it'll be Detroit tonight. And if they beat Detroit tonight, as they should, I will not poo-poo that win either, because, again, beggars cannot be choosers. At the moment, Bucks fans, we are beggars. We cannot be choosers. It was a fun night. It was a fun game to watch at Fiserv Forum. It was a fun night for Bobby. He made a couple big plays, and I still think he's shooting too much. He led the team in shot attempts last night, but whatever. He had some nice moments. Got to start somewhere. Marcus Johnson saying on the Bally broadcast, or I guess the FanDuel broadcast now, that Bobby Portis challenged his teammates before the game. Hey, we're going to hold this team. We're going to hold the Raptors under 100 tonight. I liked hearing that. It just seemed like, at least for one night, if nothing else, the vibes were pretty good last night, and it was fun to watch. Efficient night from Giannis, which I liked. And I like their 21st century shot selection. Doc talked about it after the game. This is Doc Rivers last night. Audio courtesy of Mike Clemens. Appreciate Mike sending this to me.
I just thought the whole team was a lot of energy. One of the things we've been harping on is getting to the paint, create more threes. Well, shot 56 of them today, and 50 of them were great shots. We just didn't shoot them well. But man, if we play like that every night and get those shots, we're going to be fine.
I saw that quote, I think from Eric Name. Tweeted that out last night. It would stand to reason. He covers the Bucks. Maybe it was Jim Ozarski. Maybe it was Justin Garcia, but I think it was Eric Name. And I was reading replies to the tweet, and it's all these Bucks fans like, this guy's the worst. What an idiot. He's right. The Bucks haven't taken enough threes. They've been taking too many mid-range shots, and especially without Chris Middleton, they don't have the players to make them. Last night was a great example of the style of basketball that the Bucks should be playing, shooting more threes, getting to the rim more. Doc Rivers is right. You guys, I know we make fun of Doc. I know he's kind of dopey. And at this stage of his career, maybe it's because he doesn't care anymore. Maybe it's because he's been in media. He's honest to a fault. Whatever. I'm telling you, the players like him. Fans can poke fun at him, and opposing fan bases, Sixers fans, can have an axe to grind with him. Yeah, because the Sixers have been a bastion of good basketball without Doc Rivers. Sorry, Doc Rivers couldn't get James Harden and Joel Embiid over the hump. Yeah, it was a Doc problem, Sixers fans. Yeah, it was Doc's fault. Keep tweeting about Doc in Milwaukee. The players like him. This is Jim Ozarski yesterday on Bill's show, and this is not the first time that Jim has brought something up like this over the last couple of weeks.
It is a 180 from last year with Adrian Griffin. You are not seeing those cracks. You are not hearing those cracks. You are not. Look, Giannis, the other day did he call out the competitive effort of his team, of his teammates? Yes, he did. But I asked him specifically about Doc Rivers. And what did we hear last year when Giannis went off? We need to be coached better. We need to have a plan. We need to be organized. There is none of that from Giannis or Dame or Brook Lopez. Chris obviously is not available to speak right now. You are not hearing the same things you heard last year, even though they were winning under Griff early on. So no, I don't feel that at all. I don't see it. I don't hear it, Bill. If anything, these players are more looking at themselves as we're not playing good basketball. But then look, I look at a DeLon Wright, a guy who's been benched. DeLon is engaged. He's there. This may sound like a small thing to a fan, but he's waiting in the locker room for his teammates to finish up their treatment, to get dressed, so they all go off the bus together. Here's a guy who's benched, right? And could be pouting and could be out. And so little things like that, Bill, to your question, that you're kind of looking for, at least to this point, you're not seeing those fissures on a team that's really struggling.
Doc is kind of dopey, and he's easy to poke fun of, and plenty of opposing fan bases do. And again, I think he's sometimes honest to a fault. Maybe that's the media background now that he's gotten the last couple of years, or maybe he's just gotten to the point in his career where he doesn't care. Okay, sure. But the players like him. Players like playing for him. I saw Dame defending him on Instagram, right? Here's the reality of this Bucks team. And we can leave our Bucks conversation here today. I'll give you the opportunity to call in after this break, send some text, and we can talk about the Bucks a little bit more if you guys have thoughts. But we can leave the Bucks conversation right here for the day and get into football. This is where this Bucks team stands. Let me give you the reality, okay? Plain and simple. Giannis, Dame, and Chris are going to have to be healthy They're going to have to be great leaders. They're going to have to be intense and committed, and they're going to have to play really well this year. There's no way this works if those things don't fall into place. If Dame, Chris, and Giannis aren't those things, this team's DOA. They're dead on arrival. Brooke is going to have to be a trustworthy and technically sound post defender, and every once in a while when a matchup lines up, contribute a little bit on offense. He'll have to have nights. Not every night, but he'll have to have nights. Players like AJ Green, Taurean Prince, Andre Jackson Jr., Gary Trent Jr. are going to have to hit threes and punch above their weight defensively. Not every night, but as a collective, they're going to have to hold their own. Okay? That's the formula. I'm not really looking to Doc to unlock this team, to solve this team's issue. No, I think it's on the players at this point. Okay? Giannis, Dame, and Chris are going to have to work their ass off, leading the way, setting the example, being locked in, being intense, being dialed in. Okay? Here's the thing. Are Giannis and Chris Middleton okay with 2021 being the end of their championship story? Are they okay with that? Are they fine with that? Are they okay with their contention story being done and over with? And is Dame okay with his career ending like this? Like, yeah, they traded him to Milwaukee, never really worked. Is that how Dame's career, is he fine with that? Are Giannis and Chris being fine with their window of contention being done? If so, I guess no one would really blame them. But I look at the Golden State Warriors. Steph, Clay, and Draymond weren't okay with their championship story being done when KD left. They were not content with, well, we had our run. We won our championships. We have nothing left to prove. Kevin Durant is gone. Let's ride off into the sunset with our favorite team, the Golden State Warriors, where we belong, right? They worked to get back. They fought through some lean years. They reorganized themselves, recommitted themselves, and they won another one in 2022. And I give them a ton of credit for it because no one would have blamed them. If Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green and Steve Kerr would have rode off into the sunset and their championship story ends with Kevin Durant, no one would have blamed him. They won before he got there. They won with him. They got selfish. They wanted one more. They had to recommit. And look at what the Warriors are doing now. It looks like Steph still doesn't want to be done, and Draymond still doesn't want to be done. Are Giannis and Chris okay with being done? If so, I guess no one would blame them. It's not going to make for a very engaging product the next couple of years, but you know what? You delivered Milwaukee an NBA championship. And people will always credit you for that. And no matter how you play out the rest of your career, no one's ever going to take that away from you. But that wasn't enough for Golden State. That wasn't enough for Steph Curry. Giannis and Chris need to lead the way with a ton of intensity, a ton of commitment, a lot of focus. And that energy and commitment and focus and drive needs to run off and rub off on the younger players. And they're going to follow suit because players like AJ Green and Andre Jackson Jr. are going to have to punch above their weight. They're going to have to be pulled and motivated and driven by Giannis and Chris. And again, Dame, I know he wasn't here in 2021, but kind of the same premise. Are you okay with your career ending like this? Longtime career in Portland, one token run to the Eastern Conference or Western Conference Finals, I think in 2017, where you got blasted by the Warriors. And then, oh yeah, he got dealt to the Bucks and it never really worked. Is that how you want your career to end? Because if not, here's your chance. It's this season. And while that's not the same as Giannis and Chris, they're trying to back up a title and keep their window open a little bit longer. The idea is still the same. You can go away quietly this year, or you can fight like hell to try one or two more times. And the driving force is going to have to from Giannis and Chris and Dame. And if they can't provide that, then this team is down on arrival. I think they can. I think Giannis is capable of that. And I think Chris is too. He's going to go about it in a different way than Giannis. He presents in a different way than Giannis. And I think Dame, much of the same. I think Dame this offseason seemed really committed, really focused on making this work. But now after a rough start to the season, is that it? We're going to throw in the towel? Or are we going to prove that we got more to give here? I don't know. I'm interested to see how it goes. All right. And if you have any Bucks thoughts, would love to take your calls and texts. Otherwise, we could talk about the Packers when we come back. It's the Wisco Sports Show, 608-321-1670. To your thoughts, whether they be Bucks thoughts or Packers thoughts, one way or another, coming up next.
thought what Giannis did today was he really played. One of the things we harp about is playing quick decision basketball. The ball didn't stick a lot. It went from side to side and moved and went back down, swung back in the paint and made threes. And Giannis was a shepherd of that a lot. And even when he got off the ball, he was yelling. I think one of our guys held it one time and took a shot, and Giannis made a point. That is not how we want to play. We got to keep moving and getting to the basket or creating shots. And I thought we did that.
That's Doc last night. I thought Doc, as he is in most of his post-game press conferences, is right on the money. Whether Bucks fans always want to hear what he has to say or whether Bucks fans want to take him seriously, I think Doc's done a fine job this year. Last night, their shot selection was pretty good. And as I said before this break, this season will be defined by exactly how hard Giannis and Chris and Dame want to push. Now, Giannis and Dame and Chris could all have amazing seasons, and maybe it comes to an end in a war of a 6-game series with the Celtics in the second round of the conference finals. Maybe they just aren't good enough. Fine. But I know this team is better than they've shown at the beginning. And again, I think it's going to come down to Giannis and Chris. Are you okay with your championship story ending and being done? Because if so, you can play out the string and this team can be ho-hum and we can all point and laugh at Doc Rivers and say that Bobby Portis is killing this team. Damian Lillard, is this how you want your career to end? Do you want the end of your career as a footnote? Yeah, and then after a long, feudal run in Portland with one token Western Conference Finals appearance, he ended up in Milwaukee, didn't really work. Is that how you want your career to end? If not, push really hard. I've watched Steph Curry do it. I watched the Warriors do it. No one would have blamed the Warriors if they just said, you know what? Kevin Durant's done. We're done. We had an awesome run and no one can tell us otherwise. They pushed again through some tough spots and some tough years, won again in 2022, and they look awesome this year, right? Giannis and Chris, you okay being done? I guess no one would blame you if you are. But if you really have the intestinal fortitude and the drive to keep this going, I think they have enough players on this roster. I think they have enough to have a competitive, contending season. Not saying I'd pick them, but it's in the cards, right? They're not a 1-16. They're capable of a lot more, and I think their fate is going to be decided by how hard those 3 guys at the top of the roster want to push and how hard they want to push the players and really pull the players underneath them. How hard are you going to pull? What exactly are you going to set the expectation as for AJ Green and Bobby Portis and everyone else on this roster? 608-321-1670 if you want to have a comment on the Bucks. Otherwise, we'll get into football. You can comment on the show, Facebook and YouTube. It would seem that Twitter doesn't want to take the stream tonight. It's fine. It's not like I pay for the service to stream. Anyways, Twitter has worked less and less over the last coming months. Whoever's running it, we should put them in charge of something more important. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Let's go to the phones. Who's this?
Mr. Grant.
David Monona. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm going to solve the Bucks' problem, but they're never going to listen to me. Hey, by the way, I told you about Giannis for the last 3 years, didn't I? No, you can't pick on Giannis, but here's how the Bucks can win.
I mean, has Giannis ever been their problem the last couple of years?
Yeah.
Maybe
Giannis,
Dave, maybe he hasn't been healthy in the
Giannis
playoffs.
is their problem. He's the number one problem because when he talks a big game, but he doesn't make people, accountable on the court. He talks it off the game. But if you want to make this team good, number one, Dame should never be allowed to bring the ball up. You get a point guard. What's that guy's name? Jackson? That's the new guy.
Andre Jackson Jr.?
Yeah, you make him the point guard. That's all he does. Dame roams the three-point line along with Middleton.
Okay.
And then Giannis stays in the paint. That's a potent team when Dame's roaming, and Dame doesn't got to worry about distributing the basketball. He's roaming out high. Giannis is roaming down low, and Middleton ever comes back from being a pansy ass, from being hurt. He plays defense. Jackson plays defense. And then Giannis plays some defense. There's your championship team. You got to get Dame off the point guard and let him just roam. And Giannis, anytime you step outside of 5 feet in the basket, we need to put a dog collar around Giannis. Every time he rolls out about 5 feet, zap.
See, the thing is he moved the ball so well on the perimeter. I'm with you. I don't need him shooting a ton of threes. Every once in a while, it's an 82-game season. He moves the ball pretty well if he's out on the elbow or out on the wing. He had a couple really nice passes moving the ball. Well, it worked last night. That's my point. Is it worked last night? Distributed the ball really well.
They're 2-8. Yeah, well, one game against a bad team, 2-8.
Got to start somewhere when you're 1-6.
Yeah. Well, if you're going to win a championship, he needs a dog collar around him. Outside 5 feet, you get zapped. But no, Middleton comes back. he's got to be healthy. But I wish they would take Dame off point guard and let them guys roam out, let them roam. They can fight, make the other team fight through screens. Make that Jackson cat distribute the basketball, play defense along with Middleton, and then you can put Bobby Portis down. Pat Connaughton should be on the roster. Some of those guys, and
He doesn't need.
and the old tall, who's the tall white guy?
AJ Green.
Oh my, no, the big
Brook
tall white guy. Yeah, Lopez is old. They should have traded him when he could have got somebody for him.
I don't
He's
think they
a
were.
few minutes here.
This
few
is
minutes
the
there,
problem
kinda-
and this is Dave. I appreciate it. This is why some of the Bucks takes drive me nuts. It's like, well, they should have traded Brook, or Chris is only here because Giannis wants him here. Okay, look, I wish they had younger players in their prime too. I wish instead of Chris, they had some 27, 28-year-old who is much younger and much sturdier. You can't just snap your fingers and make that trade, right? I think the Bucks roster is in about as good of a spot as it could be, given the situation that John Horst has been in and given the resources that they have to work with. They could have done a couple things better. Turns out trading 5 second-round picks for Jay Crowder, who had already quit on one team, wasn't the right move, right? Drafting Marjon Beauchamp, or basically everyone else they've drafted in the mid-20s for the last decade, hasn't really been the right pick. Okay, so they could have drafted better, but it's not like they've been drafting in the top 5 or the top 10. And okay, maybe you didn't need to trade Dante, who you weren't going to re-sign, for Serge Ibaka or second-round picks for Jay Crowder. I don't think that's why they're in this place. I don't think those moves really put them at 1-6. Didn't help, but I think the majority of the things that John Horst has done has been smart. And I think we take out our frustrations as Bucks fans on the team and on their shortcomings by saying things like, well, they only kept Chris because he's Giannis's buddy. Okay, well, Giannis, I'm sure, likes him. They won a championship together. What else did you want him to do? Right? The NBA's CBA, and I don't even want to get into it because I don't really care, but the CBA is set up in such a way where you can only sign so much money and you can only bring in a contract from a certain situation. Like, the Bucks have been pretty tightly bound the last couple of years. So Dave, to say, well, they just should have traded for Brook Lopez where they could get something for him. Well, what were they getting for him? Not somebody as good as Brook Lopez, not someone who helps them win like Brook Lopez does. So again, I get the Bucks' frustrations, but I think sometimes we lash out a little bit and we say things that actually don't make sense. Not Dave. Dave would never say things that don't make sense. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
This would be Tim from Sparta.
Hey, Tim. How's it going?
Well, I normally don't talk pro basketball because in general, it's just a bunch of showboaters that suck. But Giannis, if he ever touches the ball in the backcourt outside of just to get an inbounds pass and pass it off to somebody else, the next time he brings the ball up, I'm all for Dave in the shot collar.
Yeah.
Because that's just egregiously stupid.
I think, look, in an 82-game season, it's a lot of games. It's going to happen here and there, and that's fine. But I think your overarching point is Dame should be the one facilitating, or other players should be facilitating. Giannis should be in a different position. Then if they want to do an entry pass to him or Giannis sets a screen, that's fine. He's involved in the action. He's involved with the play. But you're not alone with the idea of someone else initiating the offense and not Giannis, Tim. I get it.
Absolutely. I'm sorry he's not Magic Johnson.
Not quite. He can do some things that Magic Johnson couldn't do, but Magic Johnson could do lots of things that Giannis couldn't do.
That's very true.
Yeah.
But the second thing I wanted to talk to you about was admonishing you upon your disinterest in the Packer-Bear rivalry.
Oh.
You're more afraid of Minnesota, and I think rightly so, because the Bears, ever since Papa Bear Hallis croaked, there hasn't been a really clear thought in that organization, except for, and this is why I hate the Bears, will always hate the Bears. And if every team in the league beat the Bears every single year, I would be happy going to my grave.
Yeah.
Because of the Mike Ditka years.
Are you saying my disinterest? Is this what I said yesterday, where it's I don't get that emotional about wanting to see the Bears lose because I'm just so used to them losing? Is this what this is in reference to?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. That's fair. That's 100%
And,
fair.
and the reason is because you didn't have to suffer through, what was it, 9, 10 years of Ditka never losing when they played Green Bay and rubbing Green Bay's nose in it every single chance he had. Now, I respect Ditka in a lot of ways and everything else, but after that, when we actually started to win a game here and there, and then all of a sudden we get back to kicking their butt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you've lived through that, then you want to return that 7 times 7.
Yeah.
And we're not at 49 years yet.
70 times 7. We could get biblical, Tim. Look, I understand that my background with the Bears is very different than some people. I wasn't around in the 80s. Tim, that's what Tim's referencing. And I wasn't around in the 90s. So my animosity towards the Cowboys doesn't quite exist. I just don't have that background. And it's not that the Packers-Bears rivalry doesn't mean anything to me. I'll be pulling like heck for the Packers come Sunday. It's just when you see a team lose and lose and lose and lose and lose, like I only get so much from watching them lose. It's all I know is watching the Bears lose. The Vikings, they could beat us. They have quite a few times. The Vikings could maybe do something. I'm not scared that the Bears are ever going to do anything, so I don't find myself actively cheering for the Bears to lose because I just kind of expect them to lose. And if the mystery, if the suspense is gone, there's a big emotional charge for me that's just taken out of the situation. Let's take a 5-minute break. If you're on hold, let's get into football next. Packers Bears. We'll talk about Sunday's upcoming game and the health of the Packers. Everybody back at practice today. That's coming up next.
it's all, again, it's everybody listening to everybody. You got too many people, and half of your staff keeps leaving. Everybody you hire leaves. They get fired. They quit. They do weird things in the office with their wiener. And then the next thing you know, you're standing there gibbering into a microphone again. It takes everybody. There's no one here. How many guys have you fired or lost in the last 15 months? 8? Well, he's working with everybody. And Chris Morgan, forget the everybody. Forget the collaboration. It doesn't work.
That's an awesome piece of sound. That's Dan Bernstein. Dan Bernstein, as one of the Barstool guys found out. Don't call him Bernstein. You don't know him like that. I saw that rant Twitter today. That's awesome. Bears fans, Bears people are in a tough spot this week. That's fine. DJ Moore seemed thrilled at the press conference today. If I was a Bears fan, that guy would be on my list. Dude kind of seems like he quit on Shane Waldron, which is one thing. You don't believe in a coach, fine. But as we talked about last night, you quit on your offensive coordinator. You also quit on your quarterback who's trying to start his NFL career off on a decent foot, let alone on an awesome foot. He's been dying for anyone to help him out on offense. And you got DJ Moore running off the field mid-play because Shane Waldron isn't creative. Shane Waldron doesn't make adjustments. He doesn't communicate or whatever the hell. I don't know. I'm talking Packers-Bears. Packers injury report is in an excellent spot. Everyone practiced today, so we could talk about that. But first, we have a caller who's been waiting on hold, so I want to get to him. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hey, it's Uncle Packer.
Uncle Packer. I could hear the enthusiasm in your voice for Sunday.
Hey, I'm going to weigh in like an old Packer fan here. I'm going to just say one thing about the Brewers. I'm not Brewers, excuse me, Bucks. Just real quick. We're on the Bucks. I just want to say a quick thing. You know, in about 3 months, we're going to be talking about how, man, when we started out, it really stunk and we couldn't get things together. We were talking about trading Giannis and, oh my God, the world is falling, the sky is falling. And in 3 months, we'll be maybe in the middle of the pack and winning a few games, and Damian will be playing better, and Chris will be back, and it'll be that same old thing. The regular season is so blasé. They got to have something to talk about. You know what I mean? So I'm just not going to worry about them. I'm going to put them on the back shelf till we get
That's fine.
where they're not making the playoffs.
That's fine.
You know?
That's 100% fine. I wouldn't blame you for it. I probably wouldn't have watched the Bucks last night if not for the in-season tournament going on. I probably would have watched college basketball.
I still watch them. I mean, I'm still watching them. I mean, I love basketball. It's fun to watch, but it's kind of sad to watch. But they'll pick it up. You know, I want to just say that I believe this is the Bears Super Bowl. This next game, I think they're going to come at us. They got a new offensive coordinator. They've got nothing to lose and everything to gain. You know, I mean, this is going to be a really hard game. This is their conference game, and don't be surprised if they bite us right in the butt. They're the Bears, you know. I'm not saying they're going to beat us, but I'm going to say they're going to come up with everything they got.
Any given Sunday, Uncle Packer. No. I've heard way too many people this week. Oh, this is in the bag. They'll blow them out. It's like, man, it's the NFL, though. Nothing is ever certain in the NFL. Ever.
I know, and like they would like nothing better. They would those Bears fans. They would be so happy. I want to keep them down, and you know I am so in agreement with you. I'm going to tell you that I hate the Vikings so bad. It's almost too much.
Well, you live up closer to the Minnesota border. You live where I grew up. It makes sense for us. Yeah.
I grew up in New Auburn, and you know the purple people eaters. I hated those guys. I mean, the devil could make a team, and I'd root for them over the Vikings. I mean, so I'm with you there. The Bears in '85, I was in Japan in the Navy because Uncle Packer's a veteran, and thank you for all that cool stuff you did on Veterans Day, by the way.
Well, it was minimalist, but thank you for your service, Uncle Packer.
Oh yeah, it was cool. I loved it. If I was 19 and single, I would leave tonight. I'd go right back in the Navy. It was so much fun. Anyway, I just think that that all this is going to come. I'm really hoping that we put them away big. I'm hoping the defensive line shows up because our statistics on the defensive line are horrible.
Yeah,
we got to have some sacks. We need to get some sacks. I think we did a good addition by subtraction with taking care of the contract of Mr. Smith, Preston Smith. I think everything's going good. I want to see some Lucas Van Ness, who is going to be. He's got to show up and make sure we know he's the number 1 draft pick.
Yeah, I like that.
It'll be a great game.
I like all that. I think it should be a great game. I think they have every reason for it to be a good game. Appreciate the call, Uncle Packer, and thank you for your service. And I'm glad to hear you had a good time in the Navy. Everything is lining up for the Packers to play one of their best games of the year coming up on Sunday. I mean, the Patriots, who don't exactly have a great pass rush, don't exactly have a great defensive front. What do they get? 7 or 8 sacks? 7 or 8 sacks, I believe, against the Bears last weekend. So if there was ever a game where this Packers pass rush can take a nice step partway through the year, coming off a bye, healthy as ever, it should be this weekend. It's all lining up, and they're as healthy as they've been. I'll show you the Matt Schneidman tweet if you're watching on the live stream from earlier today. Every player on the 53-man practiced. Jair's back. Evan Williams is back. Josh Myers is back. Tucker Kraft, who's been wearing that non-contact jersey in practice. He hasn't been injured, but they've been taking a little easy on him. Even Marshawn Lloyd is back at practice. So they have just about every reason to pop up. What I talked about with Andy Herman and Perry Goldstein on Pack-A-Day on Sunday night, something to watch is I think the Packers need to start strong in this game. I think they need to come out and put a performance together in the first quarter and the second quarter that has Bears players going, yeah, here we go again. Nothing changed. We're the same team. We're the same bad offense we've been. Caleb Williams still can't play quarterback. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Roma Dunes, they still can't get open. We still can't run the ball. We still can't put the ball in the end zone. Like, they need to put that game in that place early, offensively and defensively, to where the Bears never even for a moment have a chance to think, hey, we fixed it. New offensive coordinator, Caleb Williams, has turned a corner. We fixed it. Can't be letting them get any ideas early on in this game. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, hey,
Tony
from Texas.
Hey.
I really got to get out to New York to visit that Perry, man. She seems like a really good Packer fan.
He's a good Packer
But
fan. Good
you know
podcast.
what? I'm a guy's guy, Grant. Uncle Packer, Clemhead, those are my guys, man. Clemhead, I'll get you a top 5 list. Give me a couple of days, I'll whip something up. But I want to talk about Badger basketball. Is that okay?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, of course, obviously.
I'm actually really excited for this Arizona game coming up.
Mm-hmm.
If the Badgers win this game, don't you think we got to raise our expectations on this team this year?
Maybe. Look, I think if they win this game, it's going to tell me a lot about Stephen Crowell and Nolan Winter as a pair of bigs, especially probably Nolan Winter, who is never going to be Kofi Coburn or one of the most, big, powerful. He's never going to be Zach Edey. But if he can hold his own and they can hold their own under the basket and rebound and defend, then I'll think a little bit higher about their ceiling, especially in the Big Ten, which is a super physical conference.
Yeah, I love college basketball. I don't know if you watched any of that Kentucky Duke game last night.
Yeah.
Jay Billis talking down to us like we don't know anything. I love that line by Bodie on Twitter. Check that out.
Yeah, Bodie knocked that one out of the park. He's the JJ Redick of college basketball. Different presentation, but the same spirit behind his commentary.
Oh, well, what's the underlining theme there? I mean, what's the parallel? Duke, of course, right?
Well, that's true. JJ Redick's commentary was always, I'm smarter than you. Jay Billis reads more as, I'm better than you. I am above. I'm almost holy. I am half man, half God. And I am not only a mental authority as JJ Redick is, but I'm also a moral authority on the entire sport. And sometimes that wears thin on me.
Yeah, and that's why most fan bases hate Duke, and that's why we had the election turned out the way it did. But
that's why Trump's president. I love saying that to everything. When something goes wrong in my day, well, that's why Trump's president. That's why Biden was president. That's just, I'm a big fan of that bit. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I don't care what happens. As long as I make money and the stock market goes up, I'm good. But hey, Packers, Bears, I'm not that excited about it. Packers should kill them. I am excited to see how the Badgers turn out against Arizona, believe it or not. We're pumped up for that game. I don't know why.
I'm going to say something nuts, Tony. I appreciate the call. I'm going to say something nuts. Strap in. Okay. And I would never say this on Ebo's show because this is the type of thing that would get me in trouble. I don't think this is that insane. This is not my most insane take ever. If I could lock in this weekend a Wisconsin win over Arizona, basketball, or a Wisconsin win over Oregon, football, Wisconsin over Arizona, easily. I'd lock it in. I'd watch both the games. My head would hit the pillow on Saturday night, and I'd sleep like a baby. Wisconsin football doesn't deserve to beat Oregon. They don't deserve that one magical night where everything lines up. The players might. Some of the players might. But the coaches and those who have organized this whole friggin' operation, I'd much rather see Wisconsin basketball beat Arizona. Grant, but if they beat Oregon, that would be a program-defining win. I don't know that this program is ready to be defined. I'll just say it. I don't know that the football program's ready to be defined. Greg Gard and that basketball team, that's a program ripe for a defining win. Football, no. Beat Iowa, or at least don't get blown out by Iowa. Then we can talk about whether or not you should beat Oregon. Yeah, I said it. Lock it in. You know what? I'm going to tweet that. I'm going to throw some ice cubes into the hot oil on the internet and see what the reaction's like. All right, let's take a break. 3 minutes. I was going to go to a caller, but they just dropped off. So if you have time, call back. I'll have time to take you before 5 o'clock here. 608-321-1670. We'll talk more Badger football with Jesse Temple in about 40 minutes. More of the Wisco Sports Show next.
Yeah, obviously a lot going on Friday, and obviously a big weekend on campus too with Saturday night's football game. But we're coming off the week we had. I thought we got better as the week progressed.
Electric comment, electric edit. Really cut that off at a good time, Grant. It's Greg Gard. Yesterday, when asked about the upcoming weekend in Madison, Arizona comes to town to play basketball on Friday night. Oregon, number one team in the country, comes to Madison on Saturday night. It's a red out. Now, I'm not going to the game, but if I was, let's just say I'd be a little pissed because I went to the Bama game earlier this year, and that was a stripe game. I had to buy a white shirt for that game because my only Badger shirts that I had were gray or black. And if I was going to this game, and thankfully I'm not, you're telling me I'd have to buy a red shirt too? Do I need every color shirt under the sun to be able to attend a Badger football game? I just don't appreciate it, especially when the team can't win. And before the last break, I also tweeted this out at Wisco Grant. Throw a bold take out there. If I could only have one, I would rather have Wisconsin beat Arizona in basketball on Friday night over Wisconsin beating Oregon on Saturday night. And I understand that Wisconsin beating Oregon Saturday night, that could be a program-defining win. I don't know that this program is ready to be defined. I don't even think they're close. And Spencer points out on Twitter, he says, at this point of the season, I would agree. I think a win over Oregon would just make everyone go, well, where's this been all year? A win versus Arizona might propel a very good season for the basketball team. I would just rather see the basketball team win. I think the football program at this point is a lost cause. That Iowa loss is so damning. I'm not out on the team the rest of the year, but kind of feels like we're just playing out the spring. I understand that that's hardly a passionate war cry from a supporter of the Badgers football program, but I don't know. Give me something to support. Jesse Temple, by the way, going to join us to talk Badgers football in about a half hour. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Corey and Marshall. How are you?
Not too bad. So my take on that assertion that you just made is that I'm going to gently push back and say I think it's more of a personal preference thing.
Oh, 100. By the way, 100%. This is me serving my selfish agenda of Greg Gard support. Yes, this is a personal take. I'm not necessarily telling you how to feel, but this is just the way I feel. So yes, that goes without saying, Corey. Thank you for indicating that.
Yeah. So is it out of curiosity, because I've never quite gotten this, and it's interesting. I see this and people talk about Midwestern and Wisconsin nice, but we're actually pretty kind of intolerant of people from other places of the country.
No.
So what I'm wondering is, because I don't subscribe to this, so I'm just trying to get inside the mind of somebody that does. Does your testament of the football team come from Fickell being an outsider?
Whoa.
And Gard being from Wisconsin?
Whoa.
Like if it was
you think
Jim
I
Leonard,
detest this football team?
So I got a question for you.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
If little Jimmy Leonard was coaching this team and they were 5-4 right now, would you have the same take that you have right now about preferring to see Arizona lose to Wisconsin versus Wisconsin beat Oregon?
If I could only have one, I'm sorry. What was that?
The question would be, if little Jimmy Leonard, the architect of the 3-4 2022 season, was the current coach of the Badger football team, would you have the same feeling in terms of saying, I would trade a Badger loss to Oregon on Saturday for a Badger win to Arizona on Friday?
So the framing of what you're saying, Corey, I think I understand you now. So I appreciate the call, Corey. I'm just up against it. So, Corey, you are saying, I don't like Luke Fickell. He's an outsider. And that's why I don't like the football team. And if Jimmy Leonard was here, the pride of, why am I forgetting now? Not Prentice. Tony. Thank you. I don't know who I'm thanking. I thought of it. Me. I pulled it out of my head because I know my Wisconsin cities. The pride of Tony, Wisconsin. You're saying that if Jimmy Leonard was coaching this team, that I'd feel differently. Maybe. I don't know what the last year and a half looks like under Jimmy Leonard. And by the way, Jim Leonard. Why am I saying Jimmy? Jim Leonard. He is my elder. I'm not Jimmy. He's a good kid, Jimmy Leonard. I'm 27. I'm not calling anyone Jimmy. Jim Leonard. I don't know what the program would look like. I think a lot of Badgers fans believe that it would be different. I don't know that it would be. It's not like they look that inspired at the end with Jim Leonard either. I think Luke Fickell's a good coach. He's proven his wares elsewhere. I don't dislike Luke Fickell because he's an outsider, and I don't detest the football program. I detest the fact that they suck and they're losing games and they're getting embarrassed. Look, I understand it could be worse. They could be Purdue. They could be Northwestern. I understand. But as we talked about with Jesse, I think last week or the week before, following the Iowa game, so it would have been last week, in the Luke Fickell era, this Badgers football team has been embarrassed more times than they've notched a signature win. You could even go so far as to say that they have yet to notch a signature win. Right? If you start ranking what are the worst losses in the Luke Fickell era, well, we got to talk about this game, that game, this game, and that game. What about their best wins? Like, it's hardly a long list. Okay. So, Corey, I love when you call. I'm a big fan of yours, and you've listened and supported the show for a long time. I think you got me all wrong here. I don't have a personal agenda against the football program. They stink. And they keep getting embarrassed by teams that used to be not only their competition, right? Wisconsin used to beat Iowa frequently. They used to beat, a team like Indiana. They never lost to Indiana. And not only did they lose to them last year, Indiana has now surpassed them. Curt Cignetti comes in year one. Look what he did. Wow. I understand building the program a little bit differently. He brought in a lot more transfers, and maybe that's not the type of program that Luke Fickell wants to build, but fine. Curt Cignetti also took over a program that was way worse than Wisconsin. Not that you would have known it on the field last year, because, again, Indiana beat them, which should never happen. So it's not some personal thing against Luke Fickell. The basketball team wins. They have signature wins over the course of the season. I know the season didn't end the way you wanted to last year because they lost to James Madison. They were a couple of shots going in away from winning the Big Ten tournament, and at one point, they were a top 10 team in the country. Okay? There is a gulf right now between the success of the basketball program and the football program. And my point is, this weekend, I would like to see the more successful team get a signature win. Oregon and Wisconsin on Saturday night, well, that would be a program-defining win. Yeah, but I don't know that we can define this program. I don't know that this program has come far enough. I don't know if they've made any progress at all since Luke Fickell got here, but I don't think they're in a spot where we're ready for a program-defining win. Ben Kenny, 2 weeks ago, talked about the idea that a win over Iowa would be more meaningful than a one-off against Oregon, Ohio State, because that would speak more to the state of the program and their relevance or relativity to their direct rivals like Iowa. And I get that line of thinking. If everything lines up for a magical night and they take down Oregon on Saturday, it'll be memorable. It'll be great. I look forward to reading Jesse's story about it. We're going to talk about that coming up in about a half hour, and they'll talk about it on the camp, and I'll consume it and I'll like it. If I could only pick one, I'd rather see the basketball team beat Arizona on Friday night. I think that's a program that has an identity and is building it the right way. And I talked all about this last night. We don't need to rehash this. Let's talk more Packers Bears. Coming up, we'll get a 2-minute update from Zach Heilprin about the Packers' health, what's going on with both Badger teams. And again, Jesse Temple coming up in the next hour as well. Stick around.
You know you got such dark eyes. Mouth shaking, don't shake that shit. Used to be the hotel.
So it'll be good to just get him some practice under his belt where he's fully healthy, confident that a full week's worth of practice and stacking those days definitely be beneficial for him.
This is where Wisconsin gathers to talk sports. Packers, Brewers, Badgers, Bucks. The Wisco Sports Show is on the air. Now, here's your host, Grant Bills.
I do like to think that. What is that noise? Oh, it's my it's my Twitter Cheesehead TV video. Although I do enjoy Cheesehead TV's content. I guess free promotion. Cheesehead TV, it scared the life out of me. We're gonna talk Packers, so I guess the sound accident is appropriate. Cheesehead TV covering the Packers. Aaron Nagler does a good job. I like him. He's a good follow. We've been talking Badgers the last couple of minutes, and we'll talk Badgers with Jesse Temple when he joins us coming up in about a half hour. My hot take of the day, if I could only have one, if I could only pick one, I would pick a Wisconsin basketball win over Arizona Friday night over a Wisconsin football win over Oregon on Saturday night. I just think the basketball program has a clue. And I think they're well coached and they know who they are and they're building something worthwhile. I think Wisconsin football is just wandering in the wilderness right now. And I understand you got to be patient. They're not going to fire Luke Fickell in year 2, and they probably won't fire him after next year either if next year doesn't go well. But I'm not in it for the sake of being, I'm not patient for the sake of being patient. And this is something that Jesse and I talked about, so you hear it coming up in a bit. I'm not someone's like, well, you got to give him time. Okay. I'm pragmatic. I understand that. But how is the time being used? The more time we give Luke Fickell through the first year and a half, it becomes clear that this team is no better than the day that Paul Chryst was fired, because Paul Chryst was fired on a day where Wisconsin was embarrassed by Illinois. Wisconsin has since been embarrassed by Northwestern and Indiana and Alabama and USC and now Iowa. Like, it's not getting any better. In fact, I don't know if it's getting worse, but it's not getting any better. So what are we being patient for? That's my stance currently on the Badgers football program. More of a basketball fan at this moment in time because they're better, and I think they have a clue. We can talk about the Packers and the Bears. Packers completely healthy. If you're watching the live stream, Matt Schneidman put it nicely today, as many Packers reporters did. Everyone in the 53 is practicing. So that's Jair, Evan Williams, Josh Myers, Tucker Kraft, 100% fully healthy. Marshawn Lloyd is practicing, and Jordan Love, for the first time in forever, is not limited, which is significant. The Bears, just to name a couple, by the way, are going to be without Jaquan Brisker, who's still suffering from that concussion. That seems like a scary injury. Montez Sweat and Tevin Jenkins did not practice today. So possibly their best edge rusher and one of their offensive linemen. I don't know if he's any good. It's just a name that I know, and I know they're not exactly swimming in quality offensive linemen right now. So Tevin Jenkins would seem to be a significant absence, at least in my estimation, as a Packers fan. 608-321-1670. Let's take some calls. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Grant, it's Q.
Q.
I really like the Bucks Open, but I'm actually calling to defend your take on the Badgers.
Yes.
I'm afraid if they win, it would save Fickell's job next year. Like, that is a huge win, and I just don't believe in him. I know a lot of people are saying to be patient. It's common to take a step back before you take a step forward, but we've taken like 2, 3, 4 steps back in the last 2 years as a program. And I outside of bringing in a new offensive coordinator, I don't see how Fickell can, like, I don't think any draft class could help save this program with kind of the leadership we've seen over the last couple of years.
I think Luke Fickell's a good coach. I don't know if Phil Longo's the right guy, but it's also hard to judge Phil Longo given he's had to coach Braden Locke the last 2 years. You know what I mean? And look, he recruited Braden Locke, and he's told us, hey, if we got to start Braden Locke, we're happy with that. He told us that in fall camp. Maybe he was talking out his butt, probably was a little bit. But Tyler Van Dyke got hurt this year. Mordecai was in and out last year, and last year was even more of a period of transition. And the schedule's hard. I get it. I'm not asking the world, but I'd like to turn the games on, or I'd like to be able to sit in Camp Randall and kind of be able to see what they're trying to do. And I don't. And I don't see it on defense either, as evidenced by the mountain of yards they gave up in Iowa City 2 Saturdays ago.
I'd agree. And I fear that we're turning into the Chicago Bears of the Big Ten is what I'm seeing in front of me.
I'm not sure I even know what that means. Just dysfunctional, crummy, crappy?
crappy, nothing good on either side of the ball. Every move they make seems to go wrong, even though we hype him up each year.
Well, at least the Bears have had a good defense most of these years. They didn't have a good defense with Tressman, but that was a long time ago now. Thank you, Q, for the call. And I thought that was a strong, hey, just to pat myself on the back, I thought that was a strong Bucks take at the beginning of the show. If you missed it, go back. I feel like I have a good handle on the Bucks right now. Giannis, Dame, Chris. How do you want your careers to end? Giannis and Dame. Are you done? Is this it? Okay. I guess you could sail off into the sunset, or you can bear down, lock in, and really focus on having an awesome season. And I think the fringe players will follow. And Dame, much of the same. Like, is this how you want your career to end? A Milwaukee footnote at the end of your basketball reference? Yeah, they traded him there. Didn't really work. So I just think it's on those three. Lock in and have excellent seasons. Really put the pedal to the metal. I know they're capable of it. The Bears comparison is whatever. Look, there's worse teams in the Big Ten. But Wisconsin has the resources. They have the history. They should be better than this. I think a certain level of expectation is very fair. I don't know what to do with the Bears comparison, Q. I don't know that the win over Oregon would save anybody's job. But again, I would like to be able to turn on Badger games. I would like to be able to sit at Camp Randall and watch what's on the field and go, okay, it makes sense. They don't have the exact right players yet, right? Maybe they need to spend a little money to get a good player here or there. If you spent more money on this team, I don't know what it would fix. If you brought in different players, I don't know what it would fix. I don't believe in the scheme on either side of the ball. I think Fickell's a good coach. I think what he has tried to do for the first year and a half has absolutely not worked. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
By this point in the project manager should at least have a roadmap.
Yeah.
You're saying.
Yes. And I think that's fair, Vagabond John, isn't it?
We should be moving on from concepts of a plan and actually having an outline of a plan.
We should not be trying to come up with a plan a year and a half in. Tweak the plan, edit the plan, build on top of the plan, sure, but like we should not be at square one. And by my estimation, that's where we're sitting at this moment in time. I think we're square one. It feels like that game was probably worse than the game that got Paul Chryst fired.
Oh, it absolutely.
The Iowa game, to be clear.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the Illinois game, that team was damn near ranked, right? That was like Illinois' best team in 20 years, which, to your point, you can look at a team like Illinois and treat that as a startup where you're going to try to build the thing as it flies. You're going to build the landing gear as the plane's in flight, to continue to use corporate lingo. But, I want to go back to a couple of things that I said last year in the summer. And I know Tim and Sparta and I have been getting along lately because of my Jeff Hafley appreciation. However, I made a comment that really rubbed a couple guys the wrong way, where I said, who the hell does Wisconsin think they are? Right? I don't think this is a team that, unless Nick Saban is walking through that door, I don't think this is a team that's going to be competing for the national championship. Realistically, like straight up, that's not in our wheelhouse right now. And there's nothing on the horizon. There's no concept of a plan. There's no road. And by the way, we've never been a team on the cusp of competing for a national championship. We've been close, but there's no way in hell we've ever had a team like last year's Michigan team.
No.
Right? There's not a year where we've sent 20 dudes to the NFL.
No.
There's been years where we've sent J.J. Watt to the NFL. But don't tell me there's been a year where Wisconsin's had 20 guys drafted and dominated.
Okay, so not year by year, but the years where they were actually sending guys to the NFL with pretty decent frequency was at the end of the peak with Chryst, where they were sending Benton, Herbig, Watt, Beagle. Connolly was a fringe guy, but he was pretty excellent. Van Ginkel was there. Leon Jacobs had a cup of coffee. I know these are fringe NFL guys, but these were guys with legit NFL prospects, mostly along the defensive front.
Well, and then you add in Jonathan Taylor. I mean, you could build an offensive line entirely from Badgers and probably do well in the NFL. But, my point is Wisconsin has never been in a position to compete at a national championship level. They threw away their identity, were like a late-stage startup that got really good at one thing and thought they could get good at everything. And so they trashed the one thing they were good at and tried to pivot, right? Southwest Airlines getting rid of claiming the seats. I mean, there's all these different things you can point to. And my question remains, and when you think about Wisconsin football, I think you're spot on. We're not ready to be defined. Who the hell does Wisconsin think they are? And that's my frustration with the Fickle era. I'm fine to get rid of Chris, but I noticed Corey and Marshall, there's kind of two camps of Badger fans. And if you're in the pro-Fickle, kind of like very optimistic still, you'll say, stop talking about Paul Chris. Stop talking about Barry Alvarez.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as somebody criticizes Luke Fickle, the first thing they go back to is, well, what would Jimmy Leonard do? It's just, I love sports talk radio. We cherry pick as much as possible. I'll do it as much as anybody else. But
Me too.
You got to call out when you see it, right? I mean, you can't on one hand say, stop talking about that era. It's gone. It's the past. And then on the other hand, every time somebody criticizes your guy, you what about? So that's what I got.
Yeah, that's a good call, Vagabond John. I don't know what to do with Jim Leonard. I don't know what to tell you people. There's a lot of people who think, well, it should have been Jim Leonard. Okay, well, he's currently a defensive backs coach in the NFL. Other colleges could have hired him, man. Like, he could have become a head coach somewhere else. Nobody did. And maybe he didn't want that. Maybe he wanted to go into the NFL and become a positional coach and, go back to those ranks. I don't know. I just, to Corey and Marshall's point, it's like, well, if Jim Leonard was here, man, I don't know. The team didn't look that inspired under Jim Leonard either. There's instances where an interim coach has taken over partway through the year and re-energized the team and they looked great. And it's like, man, we got to think long and hard about hiring that guy. That's not what happened with Jim Leonard. They look like more of the same. So look, I'll lose sleep over some hiring decisions, like Adrian Griffin was one that probably wasn't great. Go back in the day, Ray Rhodes. I'm not losing sleep over the decision to let Jim Leonard walk out of the building. 608-321-1670, Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Tom in La Crosse.
Hey, Tom.
How are you doing, Grant?
I'm doing good. What's up?
Good. I'm actually going to cut it short. I'm on way to get my haircut because I got to look good on Saturday. I'll be going to Madison, and I'm speaking this into an existence. Did you see Rocky 2 when Adrian had the baby? She's in the coma. She wakes up, and she says, just win.
Oh, yeah.
They're winning on Saturday.
You feel it? This is what I felt about Penn State, and I feel like after that game, I can't believe in it again.
They're winning on Saturday, and I'm just trying to speak it into an existence. I really don't believe that. I'm just going to go have a good time. But they're winning on Saturday. I got to go get my haircut.
You got a red shirt? It's a red out, by the way. Are you prepared before I let you go, Tom?
Red sweatshirt, red Christmas pants, you name it. I'll be there.
Good. I hope you're getting your hair cut at Ken's Barbershop with Jamie on the north side. Appreciate the call, Tom. Ken, I missed that, but I missed barbecue my haircut there. I haven't got a good haircut since I left La Crosse. Should have scheduled one during Oktoberfest, but that was my mistake. Look, I'm going back and forth on Twitter with some people. It's like, hey, if you could have a basketball win on Friday night or a football win Saturday night. Well, it's a big recruiting weekend. You got a lot of recruits in town on Saturday night. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. Penn State was a big recruiting night, too. That game was at least close. I'd like to think those recruits thought, man, this environment's cool. This lock guy sucks. That's probably what the recruits left thinking with. It's hard to go to a game at Camp Randall and to experience the environment down on Regent Street and all over the place down there. It's hard to leave that environment thinking, man, that's no fun. I don't want to be a part of that. Can't speak to the product on the field. And Tom, I wish I could buy into your logic. And this is something that I talk about with Jesse coming up too, because Hunter Wohler the other day, and I saw Colton Bartholomew tweet the exchange. He's like, no one expects us to win. There's no pressure on us. So why not us? We could just go out there and shock the world. It's like, yeah, but I also, maybe thought that against Penn State, Bama, and Ohio State last year. And, I've thought this a bunch of times the last 2 years. It just hasn't worked. So maybe as soon as I'm out, I get pulled back in. I wouldn't be surprised if they play them close. And then in the third quarter, when they're down 6, Braden Locke throws a boneheaded pick and they end up losing because that's kind of how these games have gone. That's how all these games have gone. Every single one. That's how these games have gone. And Tom, I hope it works out for you. I really do. I just can't meet you in the middle on that take. I certainly can't come all over the way to your side. I thought they were going to beat Penn State. I straight up picked them to beat Penn State. And I've seen that game now half dozen times the last 2 years. Luke on the dirt roads point out, yeah, we don't call him Jimmy Leonard, Mr. James Leonard. Yeah, Mr. James Leonard. Thank you for the text. 608-321-1670. Let's take a 3-minute break. We'll come back. Some final Packers-Bears thoughts. And then we'll get to Jesse Temple to talk Wisconsin football coming up at 5:30. A lot more of the Wisco Sports Show yet to come.
I want to say probably like when we want to call, or it's probably like a drive too late, or like we wanted to make adjustments and we just wait till halftime to make it, and then we don't get the same look. So I can see what he mean by that right there.
That's DJ Moore earlier today, his media availability, when they asked, hey, what was the deal with Shane Waldron? Why wasn't he any good? And he's like, oh, communication. Anytime we wanted to make adjustments, it was always a drive too late, or we had to wait until halftime. And I heard that, and I rolled my eyes a little bit. It's like, well, when did you want to make the adjustments? You're always going 3 and out. When are you supposed to get into those adjustments? You guys never have the ball. You punt it away so quickly. But I didn't think too much of it. It's like, all right, Shane Waldron probably wasn't that great. Seems like none of the players liked him. Caleb Williams wasn't succeeding. I'll just let it go. Well, then I was scrolling X during this last break, and I saw Bill Huber has a story out. Now, we don't have the audio yet. I would imagine Mike Clemens at some point will bring this to us, maybe during the Bill Michaels Huddle tonight, so stay tuned. Bill Huber's story at Sports Illustrated. Packers star Xavier McKinney rips Bears DJ Moore. Green Bay Packers safety remembers what Chicago Bears DJ Moore said in May and what he did against the Cardinals earlier this month. Interesting. May I read some of this to you? May I? Will you indulge me? Go read his story, by the way. I don't just mean to rip off Bill's work. Bill Huber is excellent. He's on the network all the time. On May 7th, Chicago Bears receiver DJ Moore was asked about Green Bay Packers signing Xavier McKinney and the Detroit Lions drafting a couple of corners. That's nice, DJ Moore told Kay Adams. McKinney has seen the exchange. Quote, all that stuff, that's in my memory bank, and I work accordingly to that, McKinney said after Wednesday's practice. Continuing. God, this is, we don't typically hear Packers players talk like this. McKinney went on to talk about not what he knows, but what he's seen. 2 weeks ago in Chicago's loss at the Arizona Cardinals, Moore walked off the field in the middle of a play while his quarterback, Caleb Williams, was running for his life, trying to make a play. Quote, this dude walked out on his quarterback, McKinney said of Moore, pointing out he is a Bears captain. I've been playing football for 5 years now, and I've been watching football longer than that, and I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. You're supposed to be the guy, and you're just walking off the field on a rookie quarterback that you've been praising. So, that's a whole other story. According to Moore, he walked to the bench because he injured his ankle. Quote, cap, McKinney said. That's what I say, cap. By the way, I would also say cap. And here's what's stuck in my rear end the last 24 hours as Shane Waldron has been fired. And by the way, I defended the Shane Waldron hire a little bit yesterday because the NFL groupthink mob on the internet acts like we always knew that every bad hire was bad and that every good hire was good. We always knew that Cliff Kingsbury was a great hire in Washington. I can't believe that the rest of the league didn't do it, which is a load of horse manure because we all couldn't laugh Cliff Kingsbury out of Arizona fast enough. Cliff Kingsbury, your tight pants and your stupid comb over. No one had any respect for him. And now he's succeeded in Washington and everyone's like, well, duh, I could have told you that. Every team should have hired him. I want to make him head coach. Sure. Yeah, that's what everyone said at the time. And with Shane Waldron, well, I could have told you I was a bad hire. So the former passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach under Sean McVay turned offensive coordinator of Seattle, who had an awesome offense with Geno Smith. That was a bad hire. Everyone thought that was bad, huh? Everyone knew that was bad. I saw the comments from DJ Moore and then from Keenan Allen earlier today. Do you see what Keenan Allen had to say? I brought this up with Bill earlier, and I tweeted it at Wisco Grant as well. Keenan Allen tweeted, and I'm scrolling because I want to make sure. Kalen Kaler tweeted it out, but the question came from Dan Wiederer. Why didn't it click with Shane Waldron? Keenan Allen, quote, too nice of a guy. OTAs, camp, we fell into the trap of letting things go and not holding people accountable. And that's a slippery slope. Just professionalism and doing things the right way from the beginning. Wait a minute. Keenan Allen, who was acquired for a 4th-round pick, ostensibly because they wanted a veteran presence around Caleb Williams. Makes sense. Keenan Allen is saying, oh yeah, the offensive coordinator, he let us get away with everything. What? It's like, hey, why was your boss fired? Well, we weren't really doing our job great, and he kind of let us get away with it. Oh, yeah, he sounds like he's awful at his job. Actually, it sounds like you are all awful at your job. It sounds like you weren't really that good at your job. And to circle back to DJ Moore, sounds like you kind of quit on your team, quit on your quarterback, walked off the field during plays, had horrible body language all over the field. Everyone can see it. Panthers fans are like, look at the Bears fans. They're figuring it out. They're figuring out what this guy does and how he clicks and how he works. No, but it was Shane Waldron's fault. It's not the players' fault that they played bad, you see. It's Shane Waldron's fault for letting the players get away with it. Ah, I see. Imagine if I showed up late to work and my boss was like, dude, Bill's show starts at 10. We need you here by then. What the heck? And I look my boss in the eye and go, look, you've kind of created a culture here where I'm not held accountable. And look, this is a slippery slope. Obviously, we've fallen into this trap. It's just a professionalism thing. So please lead me, boss. I want to be led. My boss would punch me in the face. Probably not, but that would not go over well. It would not fly. Be like, oh, this is on me. It's not your fault that you slept in or that you were lazy or you didn't do your job or you didn't practice hard enough. Oh, it's on me. I see, because I created an environment that let you slaps get away with it. Ah, okay. And good for Xavier McKinney. I would have been fine keeping that in the locker room and using it as motivation, but I guess it's a great story for Bill Huber, so put it out. Gives us content. I'll read the quote again. This dude walked out on his quarterback, McKinney said of Moore, pointing out he is a Bears captain. I've been playing football for 5 years now, and I'm watching football for longer than that. I don't think I've ever seen anything like it. You're supposed to be the guy, and you're just walking off the field. You're walking off the field on a rookie quarterback that you've been praising, so it's like, that's a whole nother story. According to Moore, he walked to the bench because he injured his ankle. Cap, McKinney said. That's what I call cap. I would also call it cap. And even if you bang your ankle, if you're fine enough to stand and walk, you're fine enough to stay on the field to finish the play. Don't just walk to the bench. So I am on Team Xavier McKinney, but not just because he plays for the team that I cheer for and that I own. I also believe that he's right. Our boss didn't hold us accountable. He created an environment where we could slack off. Well, don't slack off then. Do your job. What do you need, a coach to hold your hand through everything? For God's sake. 608-321-1670. A couple minutes for a call, and then we'll break to get to Jesse Temple. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Hi, Grant. Dave from Hoka.
Hey,
How are
Dave.
you?
What's going on? Hey, were you listening
Hey.
earlier this week when we did all the Edmund Fitzgerald stuff? I know you're big into that. I hope you didn't miss it.
Well, I would have called in or tried to call in when that was going on, but unfortunately, I've had a kind of a not so pleasant last couple of weeks. I had a brother who passed away out in New Hampshire, so
so you've been traveling. I'm sorry to hear that,
around
Dave.
here, and that was my focus. So I wanted to ask you, was it on Monday you did it or on Friday?
Monday. And I can send you, if you want to text in, send me a text. I think your number's in the system, but I can send you the link too, to make sure you have it.
Or I can listen, or you have it recorded anyway, right?
Yeah, it's in. I can send you the link to the podcast, or if you want to go watch it on YouTube or wherever the show after the fact. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, that'd be great. I'll give you a text when I get home here. But yeah, of course, I would try to get a hold of you. And yeah, it's unfortunate. And ironically, I was going to call in to have you dedicate one of your bumper music things on that day to my brother, who was still alive at the time. But anyway, it just didn't work out that way.
I'm sorry to hear that, Dave. I'm sorry you've been going through that.
Thank you. The other thing I was just going to say is, I'm a Vikings fan, and I think Darnold, we're starting to see the real Darnold, and Superman is turned back into Clark Kent. But I'm kind of happy that they are at 7-2, but I honestly thought they'd be 4-5 about this time of year. But anyway, that's all really I have to say. So
you're that down on Sam Darnold and your chances, huh?
Well, I don't like how things have started to turn with him, but whatever. I'm still happy that the Vikings are at 7-2, and I'll take it.
Yeah.
Well, I can.
Yeah.
So
all right.
That's really all I had, but I wanted to find out, and I would have tried calling in.
I think your number's in the system, so I'll text you more information too, Dave. And again, I'm sorry you've been going through that. I know you're a big fan of this time of year, you always text in to make sure the show's happening. So if your number's in the system, I'll send it. Otherwise, it's Monday's show. Yep. So 2 days ago, not from last week, but from Monday. You can find it. And hey, on the Sam Darnold thing, that's why you bank 5 wins early when he's playing really well. And you still got a ton of talent around him on offense, and Kevin O'Connell's great, and that defense is playing well. So you don't need Sam Darnold to be MVP level. You just need him to not be awful. And I still think he's very capable of being not awful the rest of the year. 608-321-1670. One more call. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
You know who it is.
Simpson. Good evening.
Yes. How are you?
I'm good. Normally I talk to you in the mornings. Did I tell you my dad texted me yesterday? He's like, hey, I got quite the surprise this morning. I was out working in the yard with my headset on, and I almost never listen to 92.9, but I heard your voice. Do you do that show often? I said, as a matter of fact, I do every week with Simpson and Gene. Yes.
Look at that. Your dad listening in Eau Claire or in the Eau Claire area.
Yeah, up in Menominee. I don't think he's a rock music fan, but I bet he'll listen. He's a supportive father. Let's put it that way.
Does he appreciate all your terrible takes or what?
I thought we agreed on most things yesterday when we chatted. Did I have any that crazy takes?
We agree. I think you got rose-colored glasses when it comes to the Bucks.
Well, do you just want me to just stick a fork in them on November 13th?
Yeah, they're 3-8. They stink. It's over. Sell off pieces. Get what you can, like the Aaron Rodgers years with the Packers.
No, because football's different. Football's
not.
Yes, it
No,
is.
it's not.
It's a different sport. It's apples to oranges.
Oh, different sport. I'll give you that. But Aaron Rodgers had more value when he was the MVP of the year of the season and they should have traded him and got what they could have got. Same with the Bucks. They got to get rid of pieces and try to reload, and it's just not going to work. This Damian Lillard, Giannis, Chris Middleton thing is a farce.
Might be. I would even go so far as to say it probably will.
It is. It's a farce.
I can't look. You're grumpy East Coast guy. I need to see a little bit more. I'd like to give it until Christmas, which is when most people think the season should start anyway.
All right. So halfway through the season, you're waiting for halfway for them to figure it out.
I don't know that I need half of the season, but I would like to see Chris Middleton play with them at least.
When they're 10 in the hole, when they're like the last place team in the Central or whatever it is. Oh my God.
Well, maybe. Well, yeah. Look, I'm not going to be in denial.
It sounds like denial.
I'm not in denial. Not yet. Look,
they're
if they're
3-8, they're terrible. They're like the Philadelphia 76ers. They're terrible.
If they're 6-25 in a month, I'm not going to be like, wait. Like, I think a little while longer isn't unreasonable. That's all I'm saying, Simpson. And I think you believe that too. I think you think that's fine.
No, I don't. I think you should give up and trade off pieces and get what you can. And
and Simpson, I got to run. I don't know what will happen if at some point we get to a point this year. Simpson thinks we've already gotten there. By the way, that's Simpson of Rock Mornings, 95.7 The Rock. And what is it? 92.9 The X in Eau Claire. I'm sorry. I don't know. I don't know my rock radio stations. But I join them every Tuesday. If we get to the point that Simpson thinks we've already reached, I would like to see a little bit more. I don't know how they're going to handle it. I don't know if the Bucks will want to trade Giannis. I don't know if Giannis will want to be traded. I don't know how they're going to handle that. That's the thing that we'll have to wait and see. 608-321-1670. Send me a text because when we come back, we're going to have Jesse Temple on the horn to talk Badgers. Football. Oregon, the number one team in the country on Saturday nights, coming to town, and while enthusiasm for this team is low, that's still a huge deal. So we'll talk about it next. Wisco Sports Show. Appreciate you being here. About a half hour away, not even 20 minutes from the Bill Michaels Huddle. Going to talk about what went down in Green Bay today. Players back at the podium. Matt LaFleur back at the podium. Xavier McKinney talking some serious smack about DJ Moore. I think he's correct in everything that he said. DJ Moore's like, oh, our offensive coordinator was bad. Okay, well, dude, you were quitting in the middle of games. So okay. But as Xavier McKinney said, look, you can get your offensive coordinator fired, but it's not like you exactly were doing your job. So we'll get the latest. Mike Clemens at 6:30 as well. Also, Steve Mariucci joined Bill earlier today. You'll hear that conversation tonight. Love Mooch, legend of the UP right now. Jesse Temple of The Athletic. You hear him on the camp with Zach as well. His take and a little bit of back and forth that we recorded earlier today about what we can expect with Oregon coming to town Saturday night. Jesse Temple is here, writes for The Athletic, covers the Badgers. You can also hear him on the camp with Zach, one of my favorite podcasts, a must listen throughout the week as we get ready for Badger football games. They host Oregon this weekend, and the Badgers are coming off a bye. And I feel like, Jesse, a bye week halfway through a conference schedule or towards the end of the year like this could be a great opportunity to kind of tweak and adjust and maybe perfect some things for the stretch run. But the Badgers need a lot more than that. And I'm wondering how a coaching staff spends a bye week after getting absolutely blasted by one of their biggest rivals.
Well, I think the coaching staff spends it trying to do some self-reflection and figure out how the heck can we put ourselves in position to win games. But I would say, Grant, I had a chance to talk to several of the players on Tuesday night. I think that bye week was huge for them mentally because it's been a grind, no doubt about it. I think they played 6 consecutive weeks. I've had a lot of games that didn't go their way, certainly. And just being able to get away and do some different things and not have to think about football is important because this is hard. They all put everything they want, they have into this, and to not get the results that you want and have people like us talking about how they're not a great program right now is far from ideal. So is that going to make a difference against Oregon? I mean, it's hard to say. At the very least, you have to hope that this program and these guys were able to find some things that they could correct and get healthy while Oregon was busy playing a game on Saturday.
And you felt like some of those players that you talked to were in a pretty good headspace and they were hanging in there okay?
As good as they can divulge publicly. Sure. I think that it's really hard for a lot of these guys, especially maybe some of the older guys who have been through a lot of crap and then had all this optimism about a new staff, and they're no better as a program than they were before. But they also understand they've got 3 games left and an unbelievable opportunity here Saturday night to shut everybody up. It's just, what's your level of optimism about that happening based on what you've seen so far this season?
Well, let's talk about Saturday night. Let's go there because Hunter Wohler, I read this quote yesterday. No one expects us to win this game or have a chance, so why not just go out there and play? We have no pressure on us. We've got 3 games left to go. Just go out and do whatever we can. I really like Hunter Wohler. He seems like a leader and a guy that really cares about this program and winning with this program. It seems like it means a lot to him, and I love that. It's just that, Jesse, that logic would have applied 3 or 4 times now in the last 2 years, and it's never really paid off like you'd hope. I thought it would maybe pay off against Penn State. That was the game I thought they had the best chance to pull a big upset, and they didn't. I just have a hard time buying into that logic, again, because that logic is applied multiple times these last 2 years, and it's never amounted to anything.
Yeah, I don't disagree. They can say whatever they want, but they haven't performed well enough on the field. Luke Fickell's 0-5. Against teams that were ranked at the time of the game since he came to Wisconsin. The Badgers haven't had a single real meaningful win other than beating Minnesota at the end of the regular season a year ago and beating a bad Nebraska team in overtime a year ago so they could become bowl eligible. So you just got to go out and do it. But they're taking the right approach, and they're right. No one really expects them to win. And so in some sense, the pressure is off a little bit. And he's not the only one who said that on Tuesday night. But there's a difference between whatever you want to say and going out and actually doing it, because this is the best team they've faced on the schedule all year, which is saying something.
Yeah, and they've faced good teams already. Yeah, to your point. You guys talked with Phil Longo on Monday, and you've talked to them a couple times throughout the season, and we've gone back and forth about some of his commentary. As you and your, let's say, cohorts on the Badgers beat walked away from the availability with Phil Longo on Monday, what struck you guys? What jumped out to you most? What were you thinking and writing about after that presser on Monday?
I mean, what is there to say? What is there to say? He's preaching patience, and you know what you do when you're not successful? You preach patience. And he talked about how Luke Fickell has a vision and a plan, and he also talked about the importance of developing. And I mean, I can't disagree with some of the things that he says. He talked about when you're building something to sustain success, it's harder, more difficult to do that, and you can try and bring in someone for 1 year. You can try to build it over the long haul. It's just that we're approaching the end of year 2, and the team is no better really than they were a year ago. I mean, yeah, they're averaging maybe a point and a half better, and but they haven't won any big games, and they might end up with the same or certainly a very similar record to a year ago. So again, it's kind of like the players. You can say all you want, but the results kind of speak for themselves. And I just keep coming back to, I'm looking at year 3, whoever's going to be on the staff, and thinking, how are they going to be any better given the competition they have to play? And so that's a really challenging spot to be in when people want results now.
I would be fine with patience. I'm a very patient guy, Jesse. You strike me as a patient, pragmatic person. I'd be fine with being patient if I turned on my TV or I went to Camp Randall on Saturdays and could watch the game and think, they know what they're trying to build here. They don't have the right players yet, or maybe they're missing a player here or there. Maybe they just need spend a little money at this position. They'll be good. I way too often turn on the game. It's like, man, they don't have a clue. And that to me isn't really a talent thing. That's a coaching thing. I don't know if they have the right schemes and the right ideas in place to build around. And if they don't, well, then we're not being patient. We're not waiting for anything. We're just wasting time if that's the case, right?
That's a fair point. I was asked a question in a mailbag last week trying to compare what Luke Fickell's dealing with what Barry Alvarez was dealing with, which is complete apples and oranges. I'll just say that off the top. But obviously they were trying to change the trajectory of a program. And I look and think, well, you could see where the progress was coming from with Barry Alvarez. Obviously, he took over a team that was the laughing stock of college football. They go 1-10 in year 1, but by year 2, they're 5-6. And by year 3, they're 5-6 again. They narrowly miss a bowl game, but people are excited. Camp Randall Stadium attendance has gone up nearly 20,000 people from 1989 when Don Morton was there to 1992, even though Wisconsin hasn't even made a bowl game yet. And I just don't think anybody feels the same anymore. Like, the excitement and the honeymoon period are all gone. And I'll be honest, certainly I got caught up in it, but when Luke got hired in the offseason going into the 2023 season, there was as much enthusiasm about this program as I can remember in the 13 years that I've been here, and that includes some teams that went to the Rose Bowl because of what you thought was possible. But now you've seen 22 regular season games, and it's just there's no market improvement. And so it's why we're calling into question everything right now.
Yeah. And when I say, by the way, we're just wasting time, I'm not implying that Luke Fickell should be fired. That's not what I'm saying. He's going to get time. I think he's an excellent coach. I don't know if he's hired the right people or tried to put in the place the right ideas. I'm not saying we should kick him to the curb. I'm just saying, all right, be patient. That's great. But why are we being patient? Are we being patient to get the right players? Are we I just want to make sure that we're approaching this thing the right way. Jesse Temple is here. Let's talk about Braden Locke a little bit. Something crossed my mind when I was listening to you and Zach earlier this week on the camp when you brought up again how Phil Longo has praised Braden Locke's mental ability, which if he has great mental ability, it's not necessarily translating because he's making mistakes and he's failing to make reads. But I'm just wondering, are they praising Braden Locke's mental ability because at this point they just need something to compliment him on? And I guess that's something that you could say because that's kind of abstract. Like, where do we stand on Braden Locke and where he stands with his coaches in this offense?
I mean, there's no question he's a very intelligent person and player. It's just there's a huge difference between knowing what you're going to do when you're in the meeting rooms or on the practice field and doing it when the bullets are flying. And Phil even said that what's happened comes down to decision making. And what is Braden going to say? We talked to him Tuesday night. He understands he needs to be better, but he continues to put this on tape every game where he's thrown at least one interception. And I mean, you used the word pragmatic before. I think he's a very pragmatic guy. He talked about when you play quarterback, you play the most turnover-prone position in college football or the sport of football, and that is true, but you can't have as many as he has had. So he understands what he needs to do, but then when you're trying to do it against really good teams, it just has not come together when it needs to. And what obviously he needs to be able to avoid against Oregon is the back-breaking mistake that prevents Wisconsin from even having a chance.
Yeah. Putting the defense in bad spots, taking the crowd out of it, right? Those turnovers are more about just a change of a possession, right? Those turnovers, bad interceptions or fumbles or whatever can have a lot bigger impact on the game. You wrote in The Athletic last week about Wisconsin's quarterback problem, and you wrote that there's no solution right now. And I guess in a weird way, I'm about to ask you for a solution and you don't have one. That's what you wrote. I get it. But let me ask you this. How can Luke Fickell use the last month of this season to be in a better quarterback spot as a program come fall camp next year? What do they need to do?
Well, this is really tough because I think most people would say we want to see the true freshman Maber retire. And Phil Longo was asked specifically about that and said he ain't playing anytime soon, essentially is kind of what it sounded like, that if he's not ready. And I mean, I can't disagree with that. Obviously, I haven't seen practice for the last 3 months, but last we did see practice. He was nowhere close to where either Tyler Van Dyke or Braden Locke were. So what are you going to do? Well, you roll with Braden Locke. I mean, the last thing you want to do is put a young guy in a position to fail. And I think if they put him in there, maybe that's what would happen. You don't want to do that against the number one team in the country. Now, maybe against Nebraska or Minnesota, you can find an opportunity. I don't really know how much redshirting matters to this staff, especially in this transfer portal era. He's played in 3 games. He can play in 1 more and then also potentially play in the bowl game. So, I mean, would I like to see him? Yes. But if the staff doesn't feel he's ready, then they're going to play Braden. And I don't really know how much more you can learn about the future at quarterback. Now, I will say when I wrote that story, one of the things that I did not write about is something that may very well end up happening, because since that time, there is a 2025 quarterback on the board named Carter Smith, 4-star top 15 quarterback, who was previously committed to Michigan, and then Michigan decided to spend or at least pursue a number 1 quarterback for a lot of money. Carter Smith decommitted. He's coming to Wisconsin this weekend for the Oregon game. I won't be surprised if he ends up picking the Badgers, though there are a couple of other schools that are in the mix, like Florida State and UCF, since he's a Florida guy. But they need a difference maker at quarterback. And if you can find a top 15 guy this late in the cycle, because, oh, by the way, the signing period is Wednesday, December 4th, that's a pretty good victory for Wisconsin. It's just there are questions about who's going to be calling the plays next year.
Yeah, and then if they decide to move off of Longo, and you've written about this, that could lead a lot of players to decommit and jump into the transfer portal, and the number of players in the portal is only going up, right, every cycle. So that's something that they have to consider as well. Do we need to apply heat? That's such a silly idea, but is it an indictment on Wisconsin that they don't have another option other than the true freshman? I understand that their preferred guy got hurt, but for all the attention that Wisconsin and Luke Fickell paid to the quarterback position and all the names that we've heard at one point or another, commit, decommit, come through, and then transfer, is it a little bit of an indictment? Should they have at least one more option to try? Or is this position that most programs would be in if their number 1 guy got hurt?
That's kind of where I lean, Grant. I can't. It's not a great situation, but I can't fault Wisconsin for their number 3 guy at the start of the year not being ready to play. How many times can you drop down that low and have someone special, other than if it's Ohio State in a year where they end up winning a national championship? Look, they're in this spot for a variety of reasons, and the portal has a lot to do with it. You bring in 3 portal guys last season. One of them ends up being your starter, Tanner Mordecai. Another one ends up being your backup and potentially your quarterback for the future, at least at that time. And then you have Nick Evers, who wasn't ready and maybe wasn't ever given a chance here, but ended up transferring out. Miles Burkett, a guy who was on the roster, ends up transferring out. And so you're going to continue to lose guys and bring in guys. It's just you want to be able to develop a guy over time, and they have to hope that Mabry is that guy. And if he isn't, then maybe if they get a Carter Smith, that he could be that guy, because the last thing you want to do is go and get 1-year rental quarterbacks every year. I don't think that's how you want to build a team.
I would tend to agree. Lastly, college football playoff rankings came out, and our conversations normally are centered on the Badgers, and that's the way I like to keep it. But Indiana's at 5 with Curt Cignetti, and I'm just wondering, if you talk with Badgers fans, if you're in a mailbag or you're interacting with fans, or you're, maybe other reporters are interacting with fans and preaching patience. Luke Fickell's going to get some time. He needs some time. And Wisconsin fans say, well, what about Indiana? How do we square that? How do you square what's happened in Wisconsin in a year and a half versus how quickly Indiana's crawled out of a much larger hole than Wisconsin was in when Luke Fickell got here? How do you square that?
I get that question a lot. Obviously, it's 2 totally different circumstances, and maybe Curt Cignetti, look, I remember what he said in the offseason. It's one of the great quotes of the offseason when someone asked him about the vision, how he would sell his vision to recruits, and he said, it's simple, I win, Google me. So that's a dude who had a lot of confidence, but he brought in a dozen guys from his last stop for James Madison, where they won a lot of games, and I think that's had an impact. But I don't know. I look at the schedule, and maybe that's not fair, because it's not like I think Wisconsin, when they play Nebraska, is going to win 56-7 like Indiana did. Their one great win or good win is against the Michigan team that's not ranked, and now they're going to play Ohio State. So that sort of sounds like I'm not being fair to Indiana, because there are very few undefeated teams at this stage. But I don't think Wisconsin would be 5-4 if they had the same schedule. Unfortunately, I guess for the Badgers, I don't think they'd be 10-0. So Indiana clearly is doing something right. But they've also been the beneficiary of a year in which they didn't have to play all of these really great teams like Wisconsin is, or at least several of them.
Sure. And I imagine that's a question that you get a ton. And when it's brought up, I'm like, well, I don't know. Luke Fickell and Curt Cignetti are 2 very different coaches, 2 approaches, and 2 very different programs that were in different spots when they came in. Well, we'll look forward to your coverage of the Oregon game. It could be a special night, Jesse. Who knows? You could be witnessing and chronicling history on Saturday night. Again, not going to hold my breath, but it could happen, and it would be really cool. And if it does, we look forward to it. Thanks for the time, always.
There will be a story either way, Grant. Talk next time.
Wisco Sports Show, wrapping things up. Going to get into the Bill Michaels huddle here in just a couple minutes. Steve Mariucci, Mark Schofield, Mike Clemens. A little drama in Green Bay. Xavier McKinney calling out DJ Moore. Let's take a call quick because someone's trying to get in here. And we got time. 608-321-1670. Wisco Sports Show. Who's this?
Eric,
I knew it, Eric. What's going on?
It's Survivor Night. It's such a slow week in sports. It really is.
It is.
Survivor Night.
It is Survivor Night. I am excited.
And I think that last week was a really good blindside. They took that girl out. Took her right out.
Yeah, they smoked her. I think they should. By the way, since we're getting into it, they should have killed Sam because Sam can regroup. There's no way Sierra was gonna figure it out. Once her power resided in Sam and their partnership. Sam will come back and smoke Andy now. Sierra is not. She wouldn't have been a threat at all.
That's Sam. He's a sports reporter. He's a sports personality, isn't he?
He was. He covers the. He is. He covers the Titans. He was on the Packers pregame show when they played Tennessee a couple weeks ago.
Natural advantage there, right? Natural advantage.
Something like that.
I think the guy who's really going to win this thing though is the Vegan. What's his name?
Kyle. He's winning too many challenges. No, that's the problem. He's doing too good, but he's so likable. Like the jury will have no problem giving him money at the end if he makes it.
I believe so too. Another advantage he has is a psychological advantage that he doesn't have food as a problem because he's never been eating good food.
That's
at all.
true.
So
He's always
he
used to being
doesn't-
hungry.
He's always used to being hungry and eating bad food. And you know, and that guy who didn't find any money last week, as much of a doorknob as he is, he actually set that in motion. He set that blindside in motion.
Yeah.
He did.
I think it was more of a he tripped and he found $100 on the ground. I think Andy's a bozo. I gotta go, Eric. We can talk more about this tomorrow or Friday. I'm excited for Survivor tonight. Bill Michaels Huddle coming up next. Good Packers talk. Stick around.